So we pass on. We now move to the next panel. We had some really interesting stuff in the previous panel. Let's now talk about the following. The cloud computing world doesn't affect only, or doesn't relate only big companies, as most people might think. It also has to do with the public administration in a wider context. We have new modus operandi, we have new applications, new services that make our life easier. I think we all understood that in the past 2 years. Of course, all these things call for effort, struggle, additional infrastructure, risks, which we will discuss in the following panel discussion. We'll try to cast light on them in order to see how things will evolve from as of today. I have the pleasure to host Mr. Dimosthenis Anagnostopoulos, Secretary General for Information Systems of the Public Administration, and Mrs. Viktoria Kalfaki. She is the head of public sector in Google Cloud. Hello, Ms. Kalfaki, welcome. Mr. Anagnostopoulos, we have to start with the ladies, right? But there is also an institutional protocol. We have to start with the representative of the government, of the state. So let me start with you. It will be no exception. So we're talking about cloud, we're talking about transition, we're talking about the public sector. For 2.5 years, there is a well-established policy according to which cloud is our first policy. Everything goes to the cloud, right? Cloud comes first. What does this mean for the public sector, for the way it operates, for the way it is run, and what will be for the citizens to take out of that? Let me start the other way around. Benefits for the citizens are quite evident, I think, quite tangible. But allow me first to share a few words in order to comment the main decisions we took, or to comment on the main decisions we took a few years ago that allowed for all this thing to become a reality. Checking the sponsors, or the list of your sponsors in the conference, I think this is how it was with the public bodies, which are numerous, of different sizes, and it took a set of strategic decisions in order to promote digital governance, allowing thus our citizens to interact with these bodies. In a nutshell, we may now have the same credentials in order to have access to various IT systems of any body, so we have the same credentials, and we can do that using a common center of interoperability. So we may ensure that the experience will be smooth and seamless whenever we need to include our credentials, and the cloud first policy, which means that all state bodies will prioritize in an obligatory manner to store and run their systems in the cloud. What's the cloud about? As the European Union suggests, it's hybrid. So we're talking about infrastructure that are physical. The public sector's data center is there, you can touch it. That's the private cloud. And we have the public cloud. We're talking about the infrastructure and the services we get from third parties, major developers like Amazon, Google, of course, and Microsoft. And we have adopted the EU policy, according to which we have a hybrid cloud, both public and private, and multi-cloud. So we have various manufacturers in order to pool capabilities. This will allow us for to use different data centers in order to handle different workloads. And of course, there are many benefits as a result of that for the public sector, and we will be able to use the capabilities of all manufacturers, because not all manufacturers or developers have the same capabilities. So it will help us get the best result out of anybody. The same way a private company would have done for their own operation, so they get the best service by the best provider, and actually the best providers. That's what our cloud policy is about, and this will give us two advantages. A, we're going to have operating centers, because cloud first policy secures one major thing, that all our systems will be up and running on a 24/7. That wasn't the case in the past, because when you have a number of systems that interoperate, if one fails, all others fail. And the second thing, like in the case of vaccine, one could was to enter a shop, and people could use the same data center in order to check whether he was vaccinated or not. The second point is to have systems that are homogeneous, and this homogeneity allows for the intercommunication, so we can offer more services to the companies, to the citizens, to the individuals, which means a huge benefit for the Greek economy. Ms. Kalfaki, you represent one of the three top players globally in the cloud business, and you have already announced a major investment in Greece in the coming years. So judging by your experience, this transition of the public to the new era, what kind of capabilities may it unleash? Well, many capabilities. Let me start with the main thing, that cloud transition allow us to rethink certain things. Some services or core applications may be rethought of. We will review how our transition is to take place. So we put the citizen at the core. Something that some years ago, when the architecture has been discussed, we might not have thought of. So the cloud allows us to rethink about the way we serve the end customer, the citizens, that is. The next point, which is very important for all those making the cloud transition, has to do with scalability. It is easy for anyone to scale up or to scale down depending on their needs. It's something very easy. We have a different budgeting. There is no need mid-year to change your budget or review your plans every 3 years, every 2 years. No, it's something dynamic, so it changes the way the state itself drafts their budget. They have a monthly budget, they know what to spend and how to spend it, and this will grow bigger as cloud consumption keeps on rising, and the more services uploaded to the cloud are being increased. So bodies will understand what is the monthly cost for the coming years. Put that in picture. I mean, it's a huge asset for the state. They will be able to better budget their expenses, and certain assets won't be left unused, untapped. That's what scalability is all about. Moreover, the fact that the cloud is agile. So we can do many things using cloud platform. It's very agile and flexible in order to be used in various fields. And what is very important, and really surprises me that people fail to mention that in public debate, that these projects and the cloud transition makes teams make the teams to work together. They lead to their cooperation. They become more accountable, and that affects both the teams that implement certain projects or the bodies involved. The fact that departments, services have to cooperate in order to produce a certain result, and each one has to shoulder its own share of responsibility is very important. But as far as I can see it, we have some new potential or some new capabilities or possibilities that are being presented, because you have so much information, the public registers or data analysis, data processing, in order to come up with conclusions, as people say. That's something very important, and that's an additional capability, right? Using the use of data, as mentioned in the previous panels and throughout your proceedings, is very important. The point is that currently we have so many data sources, but we have to aggregate them and produce actionable data that will help our decision-making process, that will be real-time, and data that will lead us to a certain result. Because having the data, owning the data means nothing on its own. How we use this data, how we avail ourselves of them is what matters, and the decisions by the leaders, a ministry or the government as a whole, or a private company if you like, have to rely on data. They are data-driven, as we say. So we have to move away from the old model that we were to do things empirically, and that's how we used to do things, and we will do them again. Now we are data-driven decision-making process. We have data coming from various bodies, and as Mr. Anagnostopoulos said, we have lots of data coming from the public sector. So let's make use of them in order to help our decision-making process. I remember the census in the past. We used to wait for the census results in order to decide certain things. Now, I think you just gave us a teaser of what's to come, what's to follow. I'm talking about the interoperability of the systems. TaxisNet has become our passport. You want some identification? Then you use your TaxisNet credentials. You have your credentials, you enter a brand new world, especially for those of us who used to be in the Stone Age, right? Used to live in the Stone Age. Mrs. Kalfaki was absolutely correct. With respect to the interoperability as driven by the TaxisNet platform, it is as if we have all your 40 sponsors having 40 public bodies that allow citizens to have access in a seamless and single way. Because in the past, we used to have issues of homogenization or unification of public bodies. Reality is the following. You have a central point, and every service that wants to communicate with another one, for instance, the fuel pass. We were to submit an application, which means that the citizen just has to express their will. I want this one. And then the state is up to tell you whether you own the car, whether you are eligible for this fuel pass, whether you owe some driving fees or some charges. These are the things that you get some feedback for. The only thing you have to do is just to express your will. The citizens say what they want, and then they may extract the findings immediately. And that brings one more benefit, because we have one-stop service. And when you want certain decisions to be taken for interoperability's sake, you may enforce them very easily. Because now we may easily communicate, and this is, I say so because no service, no body extracts data from another body, generally speaking. No, they do it just for a specific reason, just because the citizen wants that, or because it is provided by the legal framework. And a comment on what Mrs. Kalfaki said. Being able to have a monthly, weekly budget of your operations is very important in order to make a forecast for the future. Given that you have the best cloud provider by your side, this also highlights the need to further invest in that. And it also highlights the fact that in Greece and in other European countries, there's a lack of expertise. I mean, people who are experienced and specialized in building cloud systems and making these systems work in order to get the best service available at the best cost, at the most affordable cost, and as I always say, with a seamless, non-stop way, which is what makes a state move forward. Is there any difference between the services that companies like Google offer to the state compared to the ones offered to the private sector? No, the tools are not that different. What differs is the way and the design. The fact that, and the architecture, in some cases, systems are complicated, and they may differ in this respect, and what matters a lot is the source of data, how we source them and how we process them. This is equally important also for a private company. The importance, however, is higher when we talk about state-owned data. In this case, we're talking about state-possessed data. And especially when we're talking about medical records. These are very sensitive stuff. The important thing is to protect what has to be protected, what is important. This data is very important for each and everyone. It is important to be able to protect them. And we are moving towards, we're going down this path down this road because the difference between the public and the private sector is how we practically install and run these programs, or how we design them. The service itself is not different. How we install, how we implement it, and how it ends up, there are some differences in this respect between the public and the private sector. Now, talking about security and the issue of backup, I think you mentioned something about at the beginning about the European Commission, that we have to have multiple providers. So automatically this leads me to the following question to Ms. Kalfaki. This means that there has to be some understanding, some collaboration between the companies. This competition, the way we understand that, doesn't apply in our case since you have a common client, right? Generally speaking, the policy of all providers, and that's something we have fully adapted, its core strategy has to do with the availability of our systems. We have to be open. So Google adapts open source practices, and it's very easy for anyone using the Google platform to interconnect with any other provider, a Microsoft service or an AWS service. And also, with respect to security, the way we approach cybersecurity and data security, for us, it's an agnostic issue. It doesn't matter where this data comes from, be it a private cloud filled with data, and he or she wants to use Google in order to protect them, or this data may be found in another provider or in our platform. We have the solutions in order to make sure that this data remains safe in any way, and to make sure that no one may access them in order to extract data, no matter where he or she stands. I think this is what makes us different, and actually we are the third provider making it into the Greek market, and globally speaking. Being the third means that we have a different strategy in the way we realize or we implement these programs, also in the case of cybersecurity. From the public side, do you have checks and balances in place? Because we're talking about sensitive data, right? Firstly, the state provides three different clouds. For the three different clouds, we have the G cloud that has to do with the general government, independent authorities, ministries. The general government, we have the health cloud, which has to do with health records, and the research cloud that has to do with education. The main chunk has to do with the G cloud, the one we're making reference to with respect to the systems and applications that we have to run and make sure they operate safely. This year we will reach 1 billion transactions. Maybe we will go well beyond that. These transactions facilitate the life of our citizens, and they are split in two categories. We have the services in which a citizen has to enter, they have to log in, and they express some desire, or we're talking about services in the context of which the citizens have to exchange data with the state. These are things, if we add them all together, we're talking about more than 1 billion transactions. This is the category of service mainly used. I'm talking about services in the context of which the citizen doesn't have to present a single PDF document or a scanned copy of whatever. So the need for security is massive. Having this cloud strategy, we get the following benefits, which are the following. We may apply common methods, policies, tools in order to protect data to be found in common infrastructures using private or public tools. So one may get better protected, for instance, against DDoS threats. DDoS are the kind of threats where somebody sends massively data to a specific IT system in order to bring it down. Of course, security has many levels. We have the bottom levels and the higher ones, moving up to the application level. If you have a bad user who gives his or her credentials to someone who's evil, he or she will be able to access, of course, but there are different things you do at different levels. The cloud-first policy allows you to have a single approach in tackling different problems and have people with a single or unified or expertise against these systems. I'm talking about the system operators. Imagine having any municipality, any state body, any state agency having their own data center to be protected with a state-of-the-art tools, with highly qualified people in all platforms. This consolidation is an international trend. We applied it as well, and this gives us specific benefits in order to get the best we can. When it comes to security, you can never say that you are absolutely safe. It's an ongoing struggle in order to find ourselves at a good position compared to what may happen internationally. I think we have just a few minutes. I have a round of questions for you, but if there's someone who wants to say something more or maybe to ask a question, please, you have the floor. Please feel free. No one? You may raise your hand. Mrs. Kalfaki, you're about to build a very important infrastructure in Greece. You have a major investment announced. What can this investment change with respect to these dynamics you just described? We are interested in having a local data center in Europe. We have the main concern has to do with latency issues. I'm talking about real-time data, and I will give you a very simple example. Everybody will understand that, and we all feel it. Protection policy. For instance, there is a wildfire or a flooding, and this is something that has to be detected at real time. And of course, we also work proactively. What do we do in order to prevent something like that? So this kind of infrastructure to be placed in local data centers that detect events in real time may respond to such challenges, that we all understand how important they are, how important it is to be able to give an answer and detect the issue in real time, like the wildfire. Of course, allocation services, which are being used by all providers. This is an asset that may be used by various bodies, private or public ones. So, great. Any questions? No, so I will do the closing. Mr. Anagnostopoulos, the taxes net credentials will be used in what other applications? We're going to have some new services in the use of the wallet, so we can have a mobile phone with us and have everything we need in there in terms of supporting documents or public documents. In summertime, we could have a mobile phone with ID or maybe a credit card for online payments. So we're looking forward to introducing a set of new services, health-related ones, things that facilitate our citizens' daily lives. We come up with ideas and things that our citizens need and things that will help their daily management. We focus on that, and we have many things to do. That's why we're currently launching a new interoperability project that will allow for the whole set of services a body has to give to another body, to another service, in order to facilitate the life of citizens. We can do that within a few, very quickly, in the context of a project, some 7 million euros of worth, 27 million euros of worth, in order to have the transfer of this data in a digital and safe and secure way. So, thank you very, very much for this really interesting and intriguing discussion. Thank you very much for your attention. Going to the next panel.